It's a grueling training. And you're right. You do have to, is a little bit of a breaking you down. So in school, when you work and work and work intensely on your studio project, and then you have a crit, and they'll say, well, why did you do that? Which is where you're saying you have to learn to defend yourself. But it teaches you to be really mindful, as you're saying, about your work. You don't just throw stuff down just because it's the easiest way to answer the problem.
Hi, and welcome back to Chatham Coffee Tour. Today I have my guest and friend, Leslie Schneeberger. Leslie is principal and founding architect at Schneeberger Collective. She's like a genius architect. She has such clever design and does beautiful properties as a design. I reached out actually to my daughter who used to work with Leslie, and her comment was she always puts a pop of color and a touch of whimsy in all of her designs. So that's what we love about you. So welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. That's so sweet. That was a nice touch.
It was. Well, she
nice
she worked with you for a couple of years, and so that's how we got to know each other, actually. Leslie came in once to an MLS, real estate meeting long ago, and she said, we're architects, we want to introduce our company. And I said, hold on one second, I have a daughter who's in school for architecture.
Right, I completely remember that.
And that's how we got to know each other.
Have her give me a call.
Yeah, it worked out. Yeah, she's now got a career in it, so I appreciate that. So welcome, Leslie, and looking forward to talking with you and hearing all about what you do as an architect and what it's like to live in Chatham. So first I'll kick it off, and why don't you tell us how you got to town? I did not know that. You went to high school in Dallas, Texas? Like that's where you were
from 15. I moved there when I was 15. And my best friend, her parents had a place in Falmouth, and I was kind of the kid that just tagged along. I got to spend the whole summer with them, and so that introduced me to the Cape. And I was a New Englander at heart. I had moved to Dallas from New Hampshire, and so I was very much a fish out of water in Dallas, and so being back in New England was amazing, and then the Cape was obviously amazing. So when I went to college, I went obviously as far north as I could possibly go. St. Lawrence is where you're talking about.
Upstate New York. Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of St. Lawrence kids that come down to the Cape for the summer.
Ton, including my family has St. Lawrence connections too. Yes.
So a group of us, I think midwinter freshman year, were like, okay, let's find a place on the Cape for the summer. So we found something that should be condemned in Harwich, but it was great.
I did not know that about you either. That is a great love story, right? Do you have the T-shirts for your kids? My mommy met my daddy at the Chatham Square. Uh-huh.
We do. We came in for a dinner right after our wedding, and Margaret Fallon said, "Here, this little onesie is for you."
So funny.
And then because it was our common ground, so he's from Connecticut, and we traveled all. He's a huge skier, so we spent a lot. I am too, but not the same as him. So we spent time in Utah. We spent time in Denver, but this was where everyone in the family had to do chore. You had to do something for the household, and my job was always to unpack and set up for everybody, because her mom was like, you set it up the best, which was interesting. And so she thought, you're really suited to architecture. I want you to test. I'm going to set you up with an internship, basically, with Dreve. So all of our connections and all of our even like early career things.
That's a great story. I didn't realize that. A couple of things. I didn't realize that you were in Falmouth. I didn't realize you came for college. Your parents bought a house. Like, it's a really It's a fun story, but it's actually kind of a typical story, right? Of how a lot of people get here. They just kind of trip into it and then they can't leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how did you go from that? And you had two young kids. How did you go to into architecture? Like, how did you do your studying and your training? Were you on the Cape when you did that advanced schooling?
It was a pretty brutal year. Not Pratt was great. It, interior design as well as architecture are really intense programs, and that wasn't a surprise. But living in New York is not easy. I was in like this. My room was as big as a closet, and it was just it was a lot. And Craig and I had already started seeing each other, and I was really missing him. So I decided. I was thinking about it and I was thinking, do I keep going in this? It doesn't feel quite right. I talked to the director of the program, and we were looking at my portfolio, and I was really always focusing back to architecture. All of my projects, the interior design side, the decor was good, but I was always trying to literally rebuild the spaces and just more intense, a little more extreme. And so being a lot in debt, I said, okay, I think I just need to take a break. And then related undergraduate, I had to go to grad school for it. And by that point, Craig and I were engaged. So we were, he came with me wherever I went, which you can't do, as you know from your daughter, you can't do grad school here on the Cape. So that's how we ended up. He said, if we're making this commitment, you can go to a school where I can go skiing. So it was a limited number of choices.
Oh, I love that. And for anyone who doesn't know, because I have been through it with my daughter, architecture is a huge commitment, and it is a very long, I can't even believe what a long process it is to be licensed. You need 3 years of undergrad, correct me. You need to take, is it 5 exams? Five exams, and they're difficult exams. They're not just easy exams. And then on top of it, you have to have years of experience in different parts of architecture. So it takes a very long time. It's a huge commitment, and it is worthy. Someone told me once that the best thing you learn about being an architect is how to defend your work, and that is what you're trained in. So any line you draw, you are able to represent it and say, I drew this because, which to me is kind of fascinating in your mental training.
It's a grueling training, and you're right, you do have to, it is a little bit of a breaking you down. So in school, when you work and work and work intensely on your studio project, and then you have a crit, and they'll say, well, why did you do that? Which is where you're saying you have to learn to defend yourself. But it teaches you to be really mindful, as you're saying, about your work. You don't just throw stuff down just because it's the easiest way to answer the problem.
Wow, that's a long process. So then you're in Colorado, you decide you're coming back to the Cape, and you start your career working, I'm assuming, for someone else for a while, and build up your repertoire and your body of work. And then how did you decide, like, is there something special that you like about architecture, or do you have a little niche of what you like to be part of? Or do you like the whole process top to bottom, or do you like kitchens, or what is your sort of niche?
It's like everywhere we go, oh, Leslie thought of that, which I am sort of deliberately doing, but I don't expect them to, like what, and it's like moments, like when you walk in the door, what are you going to see? When you sit, what is your favorite thing to do? Okay. So when you sit in that place, what are you going to be surrounded with? What's it going to look like? And so it's kind of amazing. It was very amazing for me that they recognize that, and I appreciate that. And that makes me realize, like, it's my style. That's
interesting, because I feel like I do a lot of that in real estate as well. Like, my favorite thing is, meeting a buyer and really having a conversation, like, what are you looking for? And what do you want? Just not everybody wants the same. I mean, everybody wants like a sense of Cape Cod, but do you like a view? Do you play tennis? Like, what are your interests? And then you can make the love connection sort of the match. for the right
Exactly.
place for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for you, I know one of your clients, our mutual client, that would just loved all the cubbies that you designed for them because they had a bunch of kids and they love storage. And just I can see that for Mindful of when you come in and you have a place for your keys. Like that is something that you have to think through.
Right. What's your lifestyle going to be as you go through?
Yeah.
Now, do you find in with what you're saying in real estate, do you find people get paralyzed sometimes by what they think they should do? Like what is the next buyer going to want, or what is going to bring me value, rather than what they really wanted, like what their heart is saying?
Sometimes they are, an example of that would be on the Cape, we really like first floor master bedrooms, not or primary suites, I should say.
I have this issue too.
It's not off Cape. Nobody cares, right? Because you're usually raising a family in the suburbs. But here, they are so many people that want to make sure that you can retire in this house. But once in a while, people will be like, I like my own house, for example, my primary is on the second floor. I love it, but I do think ahead, like, oh, geez, if I sell this house, I should probably change that around. But yes.
Yeah. I've had that exact thing though. That's actually like the perfect, we've struggled and struggled to make the first floor primary suite work and to have all the rest of the house. And partway through, some owners would say, I really want to be on the second floor and I'm spending all this money to do this, but that's not the spot I want. So it's hard, it's what do you want? Yes, you have to be smart and how can we make it work for the long term, but you can't do a lot extra in the like future proofing if it's going to hold you back from doing anything.
Especially if you have a view from the second floor, which is the big, because there are many houses that aren't waterfront that have a view from the second floor. So yes, that's a good reason to be up there. Yeah. And I'm the same way. I love to sit in bed, although I often end up on Instagram, but
you had a really great view to look at.
That's right. So watch the sun come up. And your own house, you got to design and renovate. And Leslie is so fortunate to live in downtown Chatham and just sort of behind some commerce stuff. So she is tucked in. So you've raised your kids kind of walking up and down Main Street as their backyard. What's that been like?
It's good. It's really good, actually. So when so I instigated the purchase of our house. We were lucky enough to get it before it went on market. And when I walked through it, I was like, this is it. We had lived in our starter house in Harwich was a ranch that had a unfortunate addition put on it that used to make me crazy. And I would sit forever and be like, how am I going to change this? And finally I went, I can't change this. I'm talking about value. There's no way I could have put the money it needed into it. And so I saw this house and I was like, this is perfect. Like, this is exactly where we want to be. And I brought my family through and they all were like, you are crazy. What has happened to my wife, to my mom? Like, what are you thinking? So, because it's a post and beam house, which is odd for the Cape. It's
hard to renovate a post and beam too. It's very challenging because there's no wall. You can't move the beams.
Yes.
For the most part.
Yes. So it originally was like the original like dark brown had it was great, but to the first eye, it looked very Vermont cabin, which was odd. And it had like that overhang bedroom that is open into the living room sort of chalet thing.
Yeah.
And we forever kept it pretty much how it was while I planned the renovation. And exactly like you said, I very carefully measured where every post was. And so my kitchen has a cabinet that will fit right between the two posts. And everything was done around the framework of the house, which was a challenge I really, really enjoyed. I wanted to, and not that I don't love structural engineers or work with them, but I challenged myself to not change a single bit of the structure of the house and make it work for us. And so far it does. So I'm really happy with that. And they also thought the location was crazy because, as you said, it is tucked back behind some commercial things. But interestingly, at the back side of it, it actually has, our neighbors are to either side of us, but then we actually have open land behind us. But at the time it was covered with vines. Like it just felt like this whole thing. And Craig, my husband, got permission from it's owned by Chatham Conservation Foundation.
Mhm.
And so we put together a plant like remediation plan. And so he was able to remove the vines and put in native plants. And so while we can't go back there, it's fenced off, we look into land. So it's interesting. You have the town on one side of you, and then you have kind of openness behind you. And it's been great. My girls, my oldest daughter, when she was 14, when you can first work, she got off the bus and she walked. And at that point, she lived with Lily Pulitzer. She walked in and got an application and came home and said, "I'm working at Lily."
Perfect. I mean, that is what's so neat about our little town, is that there's so much opportunity for kids to be employed. And if you live, our family house is downtown, and if you live downtown, the kids can walk to work. It's one less job, especially as a busy working mom, that you have to do, is get them to work.
Absolutely. Yeah. So they've both always worked downtown. And they've had so much independence. When friends come over, they can go, get themselves food and just shop around. And, they just, they all agreed I made a good decision. Ultimately.
The kitchen's renovated and the baths are updated, I'm sure. That's made a big difference too. That's neat. And then after you worked for other firms, you started your own, is it about 3 years ago, 4 years? When did you start? 3 years. Wow.
So I worked for myself for a few years. And then I joined a firm to open their extension office out here because the girls were getting older and I was able to do things, which is when I met your daughter.
Yeah.
Right as that was getting going. And then there were some changes within the company, and my girls are now in college. And so I had a lot more independence. And so I, missed having my own firm, and I don't know, there were a couple things with it that still spoke to me. And so 3 years ago, opened the doors to Schneeberger Collective.
Which is a gorgeous office, by the way. I know that you're in there right now, but it is so clever and it's so fun. It's just got a pop of red and all sorts of color. And it's a neat office. It's over by Stop and Shop in that plaza. And it has its own building. It's beautiful. So you did a beautiful job there. And now you have I was just looking at your website, you have quite a team working with you. How many people do you have? 15
people now.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. It's a really build it and they will come. I really, anytime you change anything in work, it's a challenge because of all the things you establish and what you have to let go when you do that, which can be really, really hard. But I have a really great group here. And I don't know, the dynamic has just worked beautifully, and I'm really happy.
And I'm assuming you're very busy too, because it was.
So I was also very fortunate, not only with good people, but with great projects. I was really, really fortunate on everything that came in the door and has allowed the company to grow as it has.
And are you only residential, or do you do any commercial too?
Feeling like how does this fit within our kind of vision of who we are? And as it evolved, it became the owner's sort of pet project that she's getting older, and she wants to give back. And so she's really turned it into something that's for the community up there. And so it is going to have office space that can be shared and used. The bottom part is for community events, bringing everyone in. Mm-hmm. And so even that has evolved into this really unique, interesting thing, which is fun.
So even though the exterior is sort of hard to move, right? You're going to be mostly stuck with the exterior box. You're able to do a lot of interior fun.
We are, but actually, so it's a really interesting one for me. I'm really, really enjoying it because it's, we love shingle style and cape architecture.
Sure.
And this is such a different whole dynamic. But we're actually reskinning the whole building to be this. It's very interesting, and it's been a really interesting study in materiality in a very different, a whole different language. But we actually just last week had a meeting with the owners to decide.
That's nice because it's outside of your wheelhouse of your normal shingles or clapboard,
Exactly.
that we have on Cape Cod. And when you think of all the projects you've done, because I know about it. Oh, you also did Pleasant Bay Community Boating. I forgot that you worked on that, and that was brought to life, and I'm there a little bit with my son. What are you most proud of, like in your design? Like what is your kind of like the greatest challenge that you were able to overcome, other than your own house?
That's where I had the pickiest clients. I think I don't think I can say anyone. I think and I know I'm sort of saying the same thing over and over, but it's when I have clients that when everything is said and done, step back and are so appreciative and thankful for what's around them. I remember I think it was the very first full new build that I had done with my other firm. And I'm still good friends with the couple.
Mhm.
And shortly afterwards, the wife had said to me, my kids come down here because it's our second home, right? My kids come down and they go, this house is so much more comfortable and so much better than our other home.
Aw,
And
that's
it,
really
it's of
nice.
course a ton of work and stressful for them. And so it was so nice to hear like, oh, you love it. And now this will be your forever house.
In the end, and the build, and like it seems almost difficult to imagine, but designing for comfort, it is like, what are your thoughts in that kind of a project? I mean, a sectional anybody could have, right? And that's comfort, but making the space comfortable, how do you do that?
It can be social or it can be private. It's especially fun when I had one client who told me their whole lifestyle. Their son was a gamer. Their daughter was a dreamer. She loved to kind of hide. He hid in his own way, right? He needed a special space for that. Wife needed her home office. Husband was an artist, needed his space. But the daughter, there was always something really interesting about her daughter when it came up in the conversation, and I could tell she sort of retreated to little spaces. So her bedroom, we made sure had this, we in the gable had this cool circle window, and so her bedroom had this great little loft that she could sneak up and
Ah,
read and do whatever she needed to have her own special private space.
I love that. I bet you must have been so thrilled to show the plans with that loft and to see them go, oh, that's exactly what we need. That's such a clever fix for that kind of a child, and to give them a little nook. It's like sort of under the stairs or up in the loft, oh, I love that. That's wonderful. Well, great. And then how do you know how to really work with clients to get the look on the outside correct? I know you do some really clever porticos, and you've got some good design for the shingles, and is that the same idea, just trying to meet where their lifestyle is and also the setting?
Understanding, we ask clients for precedence, right? If you're keeping stuff on Instagram, if you're using Pinterest, if you're pulling stuff from magazines, or even in the area, if there are things that you love, we actually sit down together and review all of those things that they love, so that they can point out what it is they like about them. So we can start to understand what elements they appreciate and what would feel good for them.
So it's really macro at first, and then you go down to where you're putting your keys. It's like the super micro, and what's going in this drawer is going to be the junk drawer, and this drawer is going to be
Exactly.
wow, that's a lot. And how do you find working with the boards? I know some of my challenges. I'm closing on one today where we had an outstanding order of conditions from conservation, just like having having the local boards, because I know, as you kind of alluded to with your own house, conservation is, very important, and we have to make sure we go through the processes and file the permits. And I'm sure you have a plan, and at this point you probably have an understanding, especially in Chatham, of what the town is looking for, and how to not necessarily beat the system, because I wouldn't accuse you of anything like that, but how to get around, creatively, and be within the standards.
Yeah. Yes. Great question. Really good question, and really relevant question. Very early on, before even putting pen to paper, we do a deep dive analysis of the property. Conservation is something that is revealed by a site plan. So we'll not start work without an updated site plan that's going to show us the conservation boundaries. Zoning is also basically revealed. And so then once we know what all of those things are, we'll talk about tolerance, right? There's certain things you can take conservation. Conservation has a mitigation standard. They have an area that's do not touch, you can't go there. They have another area that if you will help the environment, you can do stuff in there, but you have to do trade-offs that are going to make it, because of special permit. There are things you can go into, but it's not a guarantee. So you can ask with reason. And so that's, again, a tolerance for the amount of risk that, we're going to do some work to know that we want to go. and
I bet
present.
and I bet you have a pretty good sense of it. I mean, I think it's frustrating for me. Often I'm with buyers and I'm like, well, we know zoning, we can do this, but we really don't know exactly what you could do here until you have a plan that you present to see what gets approved. And that's like a frustrating place for buyers. They want to know, I can do this or I can't do this. And a lot of times it's probably
Exactly. And so, I do have a good sense, I've been in architecture here for 25 plus years. So I definitely know what the boards accept and don't accept.
Yes.
But you never know for sure. And so I never, I never want to, I hate building up expectations that might be wrong. Right. And so it's so hard to say, like, this is going to work, but I can say with confidence, this is going to be appreciated, but it's hard until you go, right? You just don't know for sure.
Well, I'm glad you have all your experience to bring to your clients, because that's so helpful to have somebody holding your hand when you're going through that process. I'm sure they really appreciate that.
And there are also people who, even if you tell them, I'm sure you see this too, even if you tell them this is not going to be approved, like you're asking for too much. And what's interesting is they'll look at it and they'll say, but by all the boundaries you've told me, it's acceptable. But it's a judgment call, right? And I can just see, like, it's just too big, or it's just asking too much. And some people say, I still want to try, right? And then you're going to probably have to go back. We'll make some concessions. So we try and stop the design as early as we can to get to those boards, but you do have to have a lot planned out. So it is an investment to get to, so you have to decide if you want to push to the boundaries or you want to do what's likely going to go through.
Well, that's great. And it must be so fulfilling to bring a project to completion and hand over the keys and probably go on vacation and to just relax and have a cocktail. It's a long, that's one thing I have learned too from my daughter. It's a long process, and it is a joyful process at times. And the end result is always so fun. So.
Yeah, it's a long relation. It is a relationship for a very long time, and it is the end result that makes it. We all went through this together, and we all are happy for the outcome of it. Because there's great things, there's stressful things, there's decisions, there's just so many things in it.
So when you get to the end and you're relaxed and you need a little getaway, or maybe in the middle when you're frazzled, where is your favorite place to hang out in Chatham, or to get a getaway, or to go when the traffic is busy and you just need a break, or in the middle of the winter when you've had a crazy day?
So when I'm frazzled and when I need to decompress, quite often at the end of the day, I go to the labyrinth actually behind the
Oh,
windmill.
nice. Yes.
And I guess I literally unwind from the day. I do love that area. And I mean, all the things you just said, when I'm frazzled and I need to decompress, that's exactly, it's the perfect, it's a cool area. I don't know if you've been, but I like
Yes.
it a lot.
How long does it take to walk the labyrinth?
If you really are doing it carefully and mindfully, it's kind of like an hour, half an hour to go in all the way in and all the way out. And it's interesting because a lot of times I'll get there and like families will be there with kids. And so you wait and they think like, oh, this will take like 10 minutes. And then there gets to be a point when they're like, all right, come on. This is taking a very long time.
It's so beautiful. And I've walked it, but I did not have the patience to walk the whole thing. As probably the families don't either. But it, especially in the off season, it must be a nice place to go.
That's when, and because this time of year, there are a lot of people wander on. And so there's a lot of sort of noise around, which can be a little distracting, but it is quiet. I don't know about you, but my favorite time on the Cape is the fall. There's just something like you could go anywhere and the afternoon and morning too, but like afternoon and evening light is so beautiful. Just seeing it, you just go park Riders Cove or Lighthouse or anywhere. And it's amazing.
I love the light too. And the light recently, I mean, we're in the middle of summer and the light last night, I was like, look around and the moon came up and it's just always worth appreciating. But I agree, the fall is a wonderful time and we still get, a little bit of a long day, not exactly as long as the summer, but that's a neat place. Well, thank you. I love you talking about the labyrinth. For people that don't know, it's in behind the windmill downtown, and I think that's Chase Park, right? Yes, Chase Park. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for coming on. I really love learning more about your craft and your process of going through it. It's just fascinating. Of course, it merges a lot with my interests, so I appreciate seeing the other side.
Thank you. And it goes, I mean, the connection back and forth
between us.
Yeah.
It's great. Well, have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. Great to see you, Barb. Thank you. Bye.
For more local stories, favorite spots, and inspiring people who chose Chatham, follow and subscribe to Chatham Coffee Tour and stay connected. Whether you're already here or dreaming about life in Chatham, this is your place to belong.